So here's us on the Raggedy Edge. Us on the Raggedy Edge. My name is Matthew Broyles, here with some very special guests from an organization called LGBTQ Saves. We have Bertie Gardner and we have Sharon Herrera here, and I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourselves and say what it is that you do and what the organization does.
Ladies first, Sharon.
All right, Sharon Herrera, founder and executive director of LGBTQ Saves. What do I do?
I know you do something over there.
We're saving lives.
Yes.
That's it. We're saving lives.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Bertie Gardner, program director for LGBTQ Saves. I think what Sharon was trying to allude to, we wear many hats. We are small but mighty here in Fort Worth, Texas. So we handle a lot of different things that might not even fall under our titles at different times.
That's other duties as assigned is how I'm often told it. Yeah. That's most of my job is that, so I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into it. As someone who has many dogs in the fight, if you were to assign a DEFCON level to where we're at right now, just in the country at large, and particularly in Texas, what's your assessment of that? Are we at 1? Are we at 2? Where are we at?
How high is the scale?
Well, it's usually 5 to 1. So, yeah.
It's beyond 5.
Yeah, that was my impression, and again, as somebody who's got a lot of folks in vulnerable demographics in my friends and family circle, it's kind of just been, pretty overwhelming, and I know that you guys have done a lot to try to help folks who are in that type of situation, and I don't know if you have any examples you could talk about, or if you'd rather not. Talk about specific examples.
I mean, I feel like every day we're doing something to directly work with the people being affected. Mm-hmm. So we are a part-time organization, but I know Sharon and we put in the full-time work to make things work, to make things happen. And so for me, I directly oversee a lot of what we do with the youth on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. When we're not having an in-person meeting, we have a Discord server that we use to let our kids connect with us outside. Maybe they need resources and we're not meeting for another week, or just like as a space to just talk to somebody who understands. We have been called the gay people in their phone a few times, and I'm just like, yes, I am a tiny gay person in your phone.
I want a gay person in my phone. I think that'd be great.
But a lot of what we do is offer that social support, and especially like right now, it's been really hard because, like, and Sharon we might go into this a little bit later. But LGBTQ Saves was founded to save lives. It was a direct response to LGBTQ youth suicide in 2010. Yeah. And so, we're always working with youth who kind of have suicidal ideation. I want to say about 90% of our youth who come to us have either seriously thought about suicide or even attempted suicide and have been referred to us by their psychiatrist or mental health professional. And so ever since November 5th of last year, that talk has been more present in our server. We usually, we're not mental health professionals, so we always try to make sure we're steering them the right way. But just, it feels more heavy. It feels like youth are more willing to say, I don't want to be here anymore. And it's not just I want to move out of Texas kind of talk.
Well, because you move out of Texas and you're still in the U.S., so...
but so it has been a little bit of a rougher waters for us as we're trying to figure out, we're still offering support. We have a great team of volunteers who are willing to jump on and be like, hey, fuck Trump. But, like, hey, we're still here. You still have a community and things like that. But when we're seeing things on a national and statewide level of there's only man and woman, where does that put our non-binary and genderqueer kids?
Right.
Abbott, I think just today I saw, is wanting to fire teachers on the spot if they respect a trans kid's pronoun and name. Right. And like through our work, we know that affirming these kids can help prevent suicide. And so it's just like, it feels like everything that I've learned and everything that I've just picked up is being thrown in my face. When it's like, I want to help this kid who is struggling, but the powers that be are cutting off those resources. Well, and it's just a hard time.
Yeah, and I think it's made more difficult when you realize that that's kind of a feature rather than a bug for a lot of these folks. Unfortunately, mass death is one of the parts of this whole thing, and it's frustrating because when you're trying to think of it from a compassion and empathy level, and you understand that it's like you're kind of bringing a wiffle ball bat to a knife fight, I mean, like compassion and empathy are seen as weapons to be wielded against you rather than things to be understood. And with that situation, it's hard to know what to do sometimes. I mean, so you guys have, how do they get in touch with y'all? Is it an online thing, or is it a phone thing, or is it some combo thereof?
It's a little bit of a combo. I know that we just, we're gearing up for our 15 years. And so one of our alumni actually just made a video and was like, I called Sharon, and that's how I got involved. So Sharon's number is very easily found within our community. Okay, good. But I think a lot of the people who find us and get in touch with us, it's largely through our social media presence and our website. Right. And then I know that because we work with a lot of different therapists, we reach out, we want to know who the affirming caregivers are. A lot of the times that returns in, I'm going to refer my client your way. So it's a lot of word of mouth, and then getting in contact either via email or through phone number.
Now, when you talk about, go ahead.
I'm very involved with the community, more so than just the youth. So I may have somebody from an organization, I'll say the Hispanic Women's Network, that knows me. They'll contact me. I have a son, or I have a friend. I have this, I have that. So that is how I get reached out, because all the different communities and the boards and just everybody that's out there knows that we're here. So like I said, the community is... Because honestly, we go back to COVID when we had to stop the in-person meetings. It was actually a blessing in disguise because we decided to go virtual. My young staff said, let's go virtual. So we went virtual, and our numbers skyrocketed. And
that's interesting.
It was, the kids were trapped at home, and kids are a lot braver now than when I was. I was 16 when I attempted suicide. One of the reasons I started this organization. And of course, I work for one of the largest school districts, Fort Worth ISD. So I have a lot of teachers that are asking, what can we do? What resources?
Yeah, I imagine.
So that's the kind of help. That's the kind of help that I'm doing. And when we started this organization in 2010, 2 years later, we were one of the first districts in the state of Texas to change policies to protect LGBTQ staff and youth. Yeah. So I'm waiting to see if the district goes back on that with Abbott on his terror.
Yeah, and that's been a lot of the thing too, is that a lot of the local officials like school board members and things like that are getting elected are further and further crazy than they have been in the past. And so there's not even really a lot of legislative remedy to be had, at this point. I had a friend who was a public defender for a long time, and he just had to quit because he said the judges that we're getting in right now are so insane, like you cannot work with them, and it's really, I've always thought of Tarrant County as being kind of a purple county, but it's feeling a lot redder.
Yeah, not with Tim O'Hare.
Right. Well, that's exactly it. Yeah, I mean, people like that. It's kind of terrifying, and I think that when you're talking about like finding, caregivers that are able to provide services, is that becoming more difficult? Are there enough medical professionals who are kind of afraid of providing medical care at this point?
We're gonna probably see people gonna have to start flying under the radar in the near future. Right now, there's lots of people coming forward to help, and a lot of people wanting to help. Our volunteer has increased. People reaching out to us. There are therapists that want to help. But if Abbott continues to reflect what Trump is doing, I think a lot of them are going to go underground.
Yeah, because I know that, like, even what I've been seeing as a trans Texan, so I've been transitioning in this state for the last 5 years. I, regularly talk to a lot of different trans masculine, trans feminine people just to kind of stay up to date on what resources we're sharing. And a lot of our kids are questioning their gender. So I try to stay on top of stuff. But I know with the wave of, legislation against healthcare for minors, that's even going as far to affect adults getting healthcare that they desperately need. I know some doctors who have spent years building trust within the community who have left the state because they're worried about their jobs, they're worried about their licensure.
Of course.
I was talking with a young woman earlier last week. She got referred to start HRT, so very excited. But she literally works at for a physician's office, but they stopped offering HRT because of the legislation. It doesn't matter if it's if they're under 18 or not. They're just like, I'm not going to touch it. And then of course we just had the executive order, which ordered that that covered the 18-year-olds. So now you have to be 18 and over to get your care. Right. And I've been hearing stories another young woman in Weatherford was in for a checkup, and she had an arm implant that was giving her estrogen, and they removed it on that visit. Really? Because they were like, we can no longer continue your care. And that's I've been trying to learn more about that one, but it's honestly terrifying to think about how this is life-saving care and we're just having it yanked away from us, and I'm worried about what that'll do for the community as a whole.
Yeah, and it's always the unintended consequence, or even if they are the intended consequences by some folks. But you can say, we're not going to issue HRT, but there's there's people other than trans people who use that, and so if you're, I think a lot of folks don't always know. It's like whenever they're trying to shut Planned Parenthood down, they think the only thing that Planned Parenthood does is abortions, right? And you don't realize they do a lot more than that. But I think it's all this kind of fear of nuance. Like everything wants everything to be black and white. This thing only does this, and that's all it does. And so we have to stop this thing, and then all the things we don't like will go away. And it never really works like that.
I think that was the ultimate goal of Project 2025.
Yes. Well, yeah, and that is a completely nuance-free document. Everything is painted in very stark terms, like, oh well, this good, this bad. Get rid of bad thing, everything be good. And it's very alarm. I wish it were surprising. I wish I were surprised that there's that many knuckleheads who want that. But I grew up in Texas, so I know exactly how many knuckleheads there are who want that. And it's one of these things where I thought I grew up in small town Texas, and I had it in my head that so look, one day all these old people are going to die off, and we're going to be able to bring more progressive ideas, and we're going to be able to, move the world forward a little bit. And what I wasn't prepared for was this whole army of these young people, this particularly young men, who are pushing a lot of this hyper conservative balderdash, like the little crew of, freaking coding nerds that Musk is bringing in to dismantle the government, like that was the part I wasn't prepared for. You can't just wait for them to die off. There's going to be new ones,
Yeah,
it feels like a different, it feels like COVID again, but this time it's going to be suicides.
Yeah, and that's what I'm worried about, is that I do feel, and I'm talking about even people who I know who are not even in a vulnerable demographic, they don't want to be here either, because it's just so awful to watch their friends suffer, and it's. I mean, as a veteran, I'm shocked more and more every day. Yeah. So it is shocking.
What you said about the city started on this trend of against the LGBT community. Was it last June they denied us a pride proclamation for the city of Fort Worth?
Yeah.
But that's when I started seeing the changes of the city. Everybody claims here that they hate Dallas, but I love Dallas. They are a blue state.
Well, on that front, they certainly. I don't like paying to park in Dallas, but I definitely, they're definitely more supportive.
Yes, but one of the council people that reached out to me after all that happened was Charles Lagerdorf, Councilman. He reached out to me. We're both veterans, so we built a relationship, and he understands our organization, and he supports our organization, so much so that he posted it on Facebook and blasted it. If he doesn't get supported by others, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He supports LGBTQ saves.
Oh, that's great.
So those conversations that you have to have one-on-one are very important.
Yeah.
But again, we're up against these people that the Trump armies.
Yeah.
I don't. It's hard for me to understand.
Well, and I've been of two minds thinking about, for instance, we got Pride coming up this summer, and so it happened last year, and there were some protesters, but they weren't super terrible. I'm wondering, will we have Pride? It was like one official Pride event, and if we do, will it be so dangerous to be there that it will be that people won't go?
Yeah, we've had to move ours. I was thinking of canceling, but Bertie was right. We're going to move it indoors instead of outdoors because we've had protesters before, and if Trump hadn't won, I wouldn't be scared to do it again.
Yeah.
But it's too dangerous to have it just out in the open.
Well, and that's what I worry about. And that's the thing is, there's one thing to be worried about the people in charge, but sometimes even worse than that are the people who feel emboldened by those people, the ones who can run over a BLM protester and get pardoned, and that's the vigilantism is the part that actually I've been more worried about than the official capacity stuff.
Yeah. That's been kind of like our concern as well. It's not just like a group of people. It's the lone person who, because like we have seen this like really weird radicalization of young men who think that, LGBTQ is wrong, women are subservient. And it's just like, and especially now where we still can't have a conversation about gun safety or gun laws. And so I feel like it's really kind of a moment, right, where it's just like, I don't know what's going to happen.
No.
I would rather be overly cautious. Like Sharon knows I make our volunteers go through all this stuff because I worry about our kids every day.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know, like part of me, I'm just like still trying to be like an optimist kind of person because otherwise I don't leave my house.
Well, that's the deal, isn't it? That's the deal. It's like if you really follow it through to just going ahead and accepting the despair, you won't even get out of bed, I mean, without some kind of hope that there is an other side of this. I don't know how far away it is. Whatever era this is that somebody's going to teach about in a history class 20 years from now, whatever this era is, how long does it last, and what comes after it? And we just don't know any of that right now.
But I did see that Trinity Pride, which is the official Fort Worth, what we do is just for the kids and the families. What Trinity Pride does is for everyone.
Right.
And I saw that they had announced their date for June in the same spot. Okay. I am very happy to see that it's still happening. Because when we talked about canceling, that was my most depressing day. Was to think of, we can't celebrate queer joy anymore because it's wrong, or it's not wrong for us, but it's seen as wrong, and it could get us really in more danger than what we have seen. So I'm really hopeful to kind of see what they put out and how they're making it a safe space, which I know that they work with Fort Worth Police Department pretty closely.
Well, and I will say,
security.
Yeah, I will say, I was at Trinity Pride last year, and there were dudes with megaphones, on the outskirts, kind of reading their Bible verses and whatnot. But the police were pretty good about keeping them at a distance. They were not.
We'll see because the chief is about to retire, so we'll see what the new chief does.
Oh yeah, well that's not.
It follows the Tim O'Hare, and he's pressured into the Trump land world.
Right.
Like I said, I don't want our kids out in public like that. I'm not going to have blood on my hands.
Right. Well,
on our 50th anniversary.
Well, because I was thinking about it, if they got it on the Magnolia Green out there, there's not a lot that would keep somebody from just plowing a truck into that thing,
Yeah, it's like New Orleans.
Right. That's not that hard to do. And it only takes one maniac to do it. So, that's the part that just... But at the same time, you kind of feel like you don't want to have to go underground, right? But at the same time, just being somebody who isn't freaking, eugenics Musk supporter or whatever is enough to make you a target at this point. And especially walking around being anything other than a straight white dude, which again, as a straight white dude, I still don't feel comfortable around these guys either because I think they're maniacs. But I don't show up on their radar as much as somebody, even my girlfriend, she has, I worry about her just walking around in the world, being female, because Texas is not great about that either. So I don't know. It's one of those things where a lot of times people vote with their feet, and if a place gets too inhospitable, they take off. And there has been a fair amount of that. A lot of my friends have moved to other places, Colorado, Washington, wherever. And I feel like they're safer, but I don't feel like they're safe,
We had, when the trans healthcare ban was passed in 2023, we had about 15 families that left Texas. And I know that currently right now, a lot of them are looking for travel grants, things like that to get out of the state as well. I am anticipating losing at least 10 more families by the time we hit Pride Month.
Yeah. And that has its own kind of negative effects too. It's like when the community thins out like that.
Once it becomes nationwide, there's nowhere to run.
But that's the other thing is that you can run, and maybe you're spared the local stuff, but if you get crap going on at a federal level, it might almost be worse to be in a city that has a high concentration, But I don't know.
Well, because it feels like even when we're able to move, the noose just gets a little bit tighter somehow. So like I know one of our families that moved to Colorado. I'm very close to them. Watching the mom be a total badass in Colorado doing all the LGBTQ advocacy. I'm just like, yes.
Yeah.
But they moved so that her young son could still get testosterone.
Yeah.
But they're a military family. And so now with TRICARE no longer supplying it, it's just like, you do all these things, you take the right steps, you move out of state, you start a whole new life because you're convinced that this is right for your kid, but then something else happens and they can no longer get their health care. And like, who knows what's on, the next steps, because like, I know for right now, a lot of adults trying to get their passports are terrified that they're going to lose their documents because there are a couple of reports that we're not getting them back. That we are applying, but we're just, something is setting off like a little thing and they're being added to a list. And it's just like, I know for me, as someone who was like on my way to get a passport, it feels very like I'm trapped to where it's like we can't go anywhere now. Like I want to leave, but how can I leave?
Well, and that's the other thing about it, and I'm curious because I've had conversations with people about, are we going to get to a point where, can you walk up to the Canadian border and request asylum? Because you can if you're in a certain, protected status. At the present time, I don't believe just being LGBTQ plus qualifies for the Canadian government for them to give you asylum, but maybe that becomes different at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's just assuming they don't get absorbed, in the course of the next couple of years.
Or we all get sent to an island, like he's planning on doing with some people.
Yeah.
It's, like I said, it's a crazy, crazy world right now.
Yeah.
It's crazy and scary. And then he's messing with our retirement for TRS. That's another thing that worries me.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
It's just like, wow. He's just dismantling everything.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm on the TRS myself, and got certain number of years before I would be eligible. But in my head, I'm thinking, is that going to be there by the time I get to retirement age? I mean, but I've thought that about Social Security for years. I've thought by the time I get there, they will have figured out a way to wipe it out. And so I'm Gen X, so I'm. It's been said for a long time that we're probably going to be the first generation to have a bunch of people who can't retire. And that, I feel like, gets even more exacerbated when you also can't get health care, especially when you have medical needs that just legally can't be provided to you. That makes it 1,000 times worse.
Yep. I may get 12 years of it. I get to retire in December. I can retire now, but I'm waiting to December to get my 90 points.
Yeah.
And then we'll see after that, because I'm going after the lump sum.
Yeah, no, go for it if you can.
Yeah.
I've still got another decade to go, so I'm behind.
Yeah.
And they don't even give you jobs as Walmart greeters anymore, so you can't even do that. So, I don't know, but it's the thing, I guess, that, and I know this is a question that we all know the answer to, but I remember growing up in the South when kind of the abiding principle was mind your own business, right? Like it's a whole song about it, mind your business so you won't be minding mine. And I feel like a lot of people had that attitude for a long time. And I think the thing that's disappeared a lot now is that everybody feels like, and when I say everybody, I'm talking about Republicans, feels like everyone else's business is their business. And it's shocking to me because this is supposedly the party of small government. This is supposedly the folks who want government out of your lives. And yet it's probably more in your life than it ever has been. Or at least if you belong to certain demographics. And I don't know, I feel, So I'm saying this again as a straight white guy. It's always, I have black friends who'll always laugh at me because it's like, white people get uppity when things that have been happening to black people for years start happening to them. Right. And so I think a lot of folks who are being affected by Trump's policies now in a tertiary way are alarmed because they're like, oh, well, that stuff can happen to me. Meanwhile, the LGBTQ community has been having this happen for, decades, centuries, really, some form of it or another. And because when I was living in New York, I got to know some folks who'd been, involved in the AIDS crisis and kind of just the sheer, just governmental, no giving a fuck about that.
They abandoned us.
Yeah. And so it's certainly not unprecedented. None of this is unprecedented. The worry is that it becomes unchangeable. And I'm not ready to go down that road yet.
It's like, I listen to, the songs of Marvin Gaye, the songs of John Lennon, all those old songs that were written about the way the world was then. Right. And yet it's still the same way.
Right. We have a brief period where it felt like. Yes. As I remember when gay marriage, got through the Supreme Court, and I was like, and that was a 5-4 court, and I was like, well, holy shit, we may actually be moving somewhere here. And it ain't even been 10 years, and we're already.
And now we have a faith office in the White House that'll probably reverse that.
Oh, of course they will. Well, and this is part of the deal is that I feel like all of pretty much most of my life there has been a multi-decade Republican project to take over the Supreme Court. Like they started that back in the 80s. And because of that long game, they finally hit it. And I feel like sometimes Democrats are playing more of like a next week game, like how can we get points this week? And it's frustrating because you see these long games starting to congeal now around this era. And but also organizing liberals is like herding cats, I mean,
we need eagles, not sheep.
Right.
Like it's been so disappointing to really see like a lack of action, I think, from our Democratic Party. I know,
maddening. Yeah,
it's like I know we have groups like ACLU and Lambda Legal that are stopping the executive orders and being like, hey, this is not constitutional, challenging them. But like when, like, I swear for like the first 2 to 3 weeks after Inauguration Day, I felt like every day was like waking up and getting punched in the face.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there was a new executive order that was targeting me, my family, my kids, because like I also work in higher ed. So now where does my job going to look like?
Yeah.
And so it's just like when I'm getting hit all this, and then it's like from the people who are allies and supposed to be the ones standing with us. It's just very like, I don't know, like I don't even know if I'm really having allowed myself to feel all these feelings, because I'm just like, I know that this is wrong and I know that I'm upset. Yeah. But I feel like I'm also just kind of trying to distance myself. Yeah. So I don't go over the deep end, but like we shouldn't have to live like this. I mean, it's 2025. Like, there are gay people, there are trans people, there are multiple genders, and people.
I think that's why we're checking on one another more often, especially our small staff, because we're the adults, right? Yeah. We're going to be okay, is what I believe. It's just these babies, but at the same time, like Bertie says, it gets dark.
Oh, of course it does.
I mean, I broke down crying the day after he won, and I was just like, I knew this was going to happen in my heart. Yeah. And here it is. Bang, 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 bang.
Well, and that like whole, and that whole, the shock and awe part, I mean, that's part of it, is to just flood the zone so that everybody is just terrified. And I understand that as a psychological tactic. However, I also understand that these things are actually legitimately bad. So it's, and not all of them are going to survive court challenges, but some of them will. And in the meantime, it just leaves a whole lot of people just uncertain about, if they're going to be okay, and it's one of those, and I remember this from the first Trump term, right? 2017 was a very bad year in a lot of ways because a lot of things that we thought would never happen started happening. And it kind of in the same way that like when Roe got overturned, right? It was just this thunderous thing that came down, and everyone was just like, I never thought in my lifetime I would see it. And I keep being tired of being in unprecedented times. And again, having a large historical lens, we're kind of not, because a lot of this stuff is just trying to wind back the clock to stuff that was already the case. But I think part of why they are so mobilized is because there have been so many strides made, because so many things have become part of regular American life, and it drives them crazy that they just have to just be in the room with gay people who say, I'm gay and I'm happy. That drives them absolutely insane. And so they froth at the mouth, and they try to just, let's just wind everything back to 1850 or whatever. And in the same way that there were people who were angry that they had to watch black people at the halftime show yesterday.
My God!
It was a DEI show. It was a DEI halftime show. It's
NFL's
just
woke.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. The NFL.
It's like I want to shake the feeling. I was talking to my wife because she's afraid for me, for my life,
of course,
because of what we do. And I was telling her, I got to shake this feeling. When I watched the movie Boys Don't Cry, I was in Austin. I can't remember the year it was, 98 or 99. Mm-hmm. I walked out of the theater shaking. That was the first time I had ever even transgender, whatever it was. I didn't have a word for it, but I was so shaken up at what they did to her, to him, to her. That feeling is what I have now.
Yeah.
That just punch, that fear. And I paid my tributes to him. I visited Lincoln, Nebraska, where he's buried, and his own mother didn't put Brandon Tina. The mother put Tina Brandon on the burial site.
Yeah.
So in the house where they killed him, they burned it down.
Yeah.
The town doesn't want to remember
Well, that's kind of
what happened there.
And that's the deal with America, is we are so proud of our ignorance. Like, they've put up so many signs on the spot where Emmett Till was killed, and every time they get riddled with bullet holes, and they have to put up a new sign. It's like it's not bad enough to just have the history. We also have to be really proud of it. We have to be really proud of how shitty we've been in the past, and that is one of the things. And I guess I just thought it was Southern ignorance, but I'm beginning to realize it's just American ignorance generally, is that, and Isaac Asimov said this years ago, it's like, we have this attitude where my ignorance is just as important as your intelligence. And that's just not true. And we have this distrust of the elites, right? And as we perceive them. But what we usually perceive of as the elites is not so much economic or industrial, but they got book learning, right? They've been to college, and they use big words, and they have letters after their names and stuff. And Lord knows, look, I've worked in academia long enough. I know all about the pointy-headed intellectuals not always having the right answers. But I also feel like a fear of expertise is, because you can tell somebody, when they'll go, there's two genders. And you say, all right, well, scientifically, though, there's not. and you show them, all the spectrum that sexuality can exist on. And they'd be
propaganda.
Like, right. And they're like, well, that's woke it's not a real source because they don't like it. That's the only thing that makes it a source or not.
Yeah, show me an unbiased source. But when you do, blah, 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 they move the goalposts.
Of course they do. Yeah.
And what really is upsetting about when they're saying we don't want DEI, that stuff is not necessary anymore, but we still see bullet holes in the Emmett Till sign.
Exactly.
We see people being willfully super racist when they think that it's not going to get them in trouble anymore.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, do you guys really not see like why we needed this? Because like, I don't know.
Especially Greg Abbott.
Well,
in his wheelchair.
Yes, like
yes, right.
I hire, but it's I don't know. I'm just like kind of flabbergasted by it all. And then like the big argument that I've been hearing is people being like, well, you should hire based on merit. And I'm just like, then why? Because like, so I work for a private university here in the city, and I am the assistant director of student diversity and inclusion programs. I don't do any hiring. I don't sit on the admissions committee. I literally just put on programs where we learn about different cultures and we have discussions about allyship, racism. But that is a program that we are most likely losing because of the whole blanket of no DEI work can happen on campuses.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who it was benefiting. And it's really interesting to me because like I've worked for schools that are, Hispanic serving institutions, or even my alma mater, which is a state school, is seeking HSI status. And it's like they want to do it for the additional funding that happens with it. But now it's just like, well, we can't do DEI anymore, so don't count on that funding. Yeah. And like for like my school, we're very small. We rely on like anything we can get to help make sure that our students are getting massive financial aid packages, that we're able to give them additional resources so that they are finishing college and getting their degrees. Because a lot of our students are first generation Hispanic. They don't have that clear pathway to get through college. But by saying no more DEI programs, it's really affecting them the most. Like if my job changes, fine. But like I can't say that for the students who like they light up when it's like, oh my God, you guys are having an LGBTQ festival, or oh my God, mariachi is coming around, or we have a lion dancer for Lunar New Year. Like I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel at home and accepted. And I think it really does help with feeling like you're part of a community when you're able to participate in all this stuff. Like some people will try to say, well, I'm not Asian, so I'm not going to go and do this. I'm like, no, come. Yeah, right. I want you to understand. But by saying like no DEI, like even with it just being like on the Texas side, we saw all sorts of stuff being just immediately dumped. And it's just like, why is it wrong to recognize Black History Month? Yeah. Why is it wrong to recognize women?
We know why. Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, we know why. But it's just like, to me, when people are like, yeah, no DEI, and it's the people that it was made for. Yeah. And I'm just like, do you know what's going to happen? Well, and there's no anti-discrimination policy.
And I try not to speak on things, about issues that I'm not a member of the community, but I have a lot of Hispanic female friends who are very, very mad at their brothers and uncles who voted Trump and are suddenly shocked, I'm telling you, to find out that he's, basically wanting to sweep up all the brown people and send them to nowhere. And, or even the tariffs, they were like, well, I didn't think he'd actually do it. It's, there's a whole subreddit of like, the wolves eating faces party, well, I didn't think they were going to eat my face, and it's one of these things where, and again, when you talk about all these effects that you were just describing, to us, that sounds horrible. That sounds, oh my God, this is, these people aren't going to be able to go to college, or people, but to the folks who have engineered this stuff, that's the selling point. It's like you're going to have fewer minorities in who are able to get a leg up and go farther in the economy. What they're doing is keeping people in their place.
Yeah.
So it's
afraid. They're so afraid right now of losing their place.
Yeah.
They're going to eliminate every.
Well, I remember the Tiki Nazis. You remember, when they were the we will not be replaced people. And
yeah.
I thought it was hilarious that when they were all talking about, let's get rid of the H-1B visas, and freaking Musk comes out and he goes, no, you can't do that because y'all are dumb. I can't hire you. I have to hire immigrants because y'all are too stupid to do the stuff I need you for. And, that extends to so many things. It's like if you get rid of all of the diversity in your workforce, you lose a lot of talent and you lose a lot of capacity to make money, which I thought we were doing here, but I don't know.
In a capitalistic society, we don't want to make money.
Right. Yeah. What are we doing? And some, there was a few folks discussions going on talking about how we're almost kind of reaching the end of capitalism and entering into sort of a techno-feudalism, where we have, because we don't manufacture anything anymore, right? The U.S., we don't produce things. What we have is a service economy. And that is all contained within these walled garden technospheres, and if the people who own those are the ones who were all at the inauguration, it was like the Bezoses and the Zuckerbergs and all that. Mm-hmm. And that's becoming startlingly real to me, that I think even as much as I hated, full on late stage, American hyper-capitalism, I worry that what's coming next is even worse than that. Because the idea seems to really be, we got the people on the top and we got the people on the bottom, and there's no one in the middle.
There's only going to be two classes.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I see coming.
Yeah. Well, destroying the middle class. Yeah. That's one of the first things you do when you're trying to engineer an authoritarian state, because the middle class is it's the buffer that keeps that thing from happening. And we've already decimated the middle class to such a degree that this almost was inevitable, really. And again, this is one of those conversations that, always gets me in the fetal position, later. But it's that everything is happening all at once. It's not just that the economy is getting trashed. It's not just that, civil rights is taking a hit. It's that all of it's happening all at once. And it's hard to know where to, which bit of the dam do you plug with your finger,
and what do you have the capacity for? Because like you said, with everything going on with the economy, with housing, right, so many more people, even when I'm talking to folks, I know I have 2 jobs, Sharon has 2 jobs.
Right. I do too.
And on the weekends, we do something else, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever we can to keep ourselves afloat. But talking to our allies and things like that, they're still in the same boat. Mm-hmm. And so it's really frustrating when, of course, it's why aren't the Democrats doing anything? But it's also just we're working 60 to 80 hours to keep food on our tables.
Right.
And I think it's making it harder for us to extend that life raft because, right now it's kind of, you have yours or you don't.
Yeah.
And are you willing to give up a shift that ensures your house payment to go and do something for other people? And I think that's kind of where we're stuck.
Yeah, it is.
Because I know a lot of our youth and the students that I work with, they're very opinionated. They want to be out there. They want to be involved. But it comes at a cost that we can't pay all the time.
Well, and I keep having people, when we need to get in the streets, and I'm like, when?
Yeah. When are you free?
When can I do that?
Yeah, I'd love to focus on women's rights, the abortion stuff, but I can't. The youth is the focus, period.
Yeah.
Like I said, us adults are going to be okay. It's these kids.
And that's
so quickly.
Right, and that's what a lot of what I'm worrying about is, because you get a guy like Musk. I mean, his whole thing is a eugenics type of thing. he wants what he perceives as the weak and the unfit to die off. Like that's the plan. And so when things are engineered that way, that's exactly what happens. But unfortunately, and this is the one bit of hope I would like to hang a little bit on, is it's kind of it's the reason why when people think, oh, well, if we just bomb the shit out of a place, we'll get rid of all the terrorists, right? But instead of what you've actually done is create more terrorists, right? You've created people who know someone who got the shit bombed out of them, and now they're mad, and so they're going to go fight. And it's like Luke Skywalker, right? He wasn't into the rebellion thing until they fried his parent, or his uncle and aunt.
His aunt and uncle.
Right. So, like, I feel like if there's enough people who have LGBTQ folks and other folks in their lives who commit suicide or worse because of all of this, I feel like it's just going to make kind of an army of really pissed off people. And I just hope that there's enough of us, to try to move the needle at all.
I just hope that there can be more movement before people decide to start killing themselves.
Me too, right.
Yeah, because, like, I'm tired of, hearing, like, oh, you guys are just overreacting, because, like,
well, of course,
one of my brothers is Hispanic and a pro-Trumper. So it's a fun time being in my, like, 3 out of 5 of my siblings are queer. And we have all, like, my 2 brothers have married immigrants or people from another country. And it's just, I don't know. It's just like, oh, that's not really going to happen. And then it's like, well, okay, well, this happened.
Right.
And it's like, well, you shouldn't have done this. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
He was trying to say something like, well, I shouldn't be paying for your health care. And I'm just like, you're not paying for my health care. I pay for it out of pocket.
Right.
But I am mad that, like, if you were on Medicare today, you could get Viagra, but my, older trans woman can't get her estrogen.
Yeah. Well, and I always get irritated when, I yelled at this lady who really pissed me off the other day because she was talking about, and my thing is, like, I can't believe that you are going to sell me and my friends and my family down the river for cheaper eggs. Like, that's really important to you that you get, and you didn't even get cheaper eggs, by the way. But the things that we prioritize as being, oh, well, we have to, government efficiency, we have to prioritize that, we have to run the government like a business, and that type of
public sector cannot run like a business.
No, and because then it fails miserably. I work for a public institution, and we're not supposed to make money. That's not what we're there for. We're there to provide services for the community. And I think we've just, all of our lives, in being Americans, we've just ingested, and particularly those of us raised in the Reagan era and since, have internalized this whole thing that everything must be maximally profitable. And there's just huge sections of life that don't work that way. Like being a parent, is that profitable? Is it profitable to be a parent? I'd never made profit off of it. The profit was the act itself. The thing itself is the reward. But we don't have that mindset. Somebody was saying that in most other cultures in the world, you have the archetype of the wise old poor man, the mystic, who doesn't own anything and, but can tell you the truths of life. We don't have that here. The only things that we have as far as wisdom goes, we have like old investment bankers and like old, corporate politicians and things. We don't have the kinds of wisdom that we value are things that you can, like self-help books and stuff like that. People who are on Oprah. And I don't know, it obviously gets me into something of a rage, but I feel like unless we can figure out that there are things that are important that don't make money, we're always going to be like this.
Yeah. It's even just, so like outside of being like queer, a lot of our kids are neurodivergent. They have autism. They're on the spectrum.
Yeah.
They a lot of them have like 504 plans. And so just to even see like education being hit so hard right now, where it's like, yeah, you know, keep the weak in their place, but it's just so damning when it's like, this kid is going to grow. Like for me, I'm biased. They call me server dad. I have a few of them that give me Father's Day cards. So I'm heavily invested in these kids.
Yeah.
But like, I see them doing really great things. And it's because they have that opportunity. They have someone at school who's giving them a leg up. They have someone in our organization who is cheering them on every day, even on the days they feel like shit.
Yeah.
And it's just like getting rid of all of this. And it's just like, what are you expecting out of it?
Well, it gets very James Bond, you know. It's like, you know, I expect you to die, you know. Yeah. And I think, again, I think that's what they think they want, but I think a lot of them may not realize just how many people in their family and friend groups are going to be affected by it. And I don't, in the same way that, you know, when they overturned Roe, there's all these people, oh, great, now these, you know, welfare moms are not going to be out there getting pregnant all the time. And what they found out was there were women that they knew who were going to be affected by this, you know, and who exist in their socioeconomic class. And, you know, and that's the other part of it, I think, that is bothersome to me, is when we have created all these other categories, you know, where it's not enough to just say, you know, there's lots of different kinds of people. We have to say, well, there's regular people, and then there's all these other people. And these other people, it's not good that they're other. There's something bad with them because they're other. There's something other than what the normal is. And I guess that's never felt very good to me from a standpoint of just being a nerd, right? You know, because I've always been an other in that way, but also because I know so many people who just struggle to get by in a society that wants them to be a fish who can climb a tree, right? You know, I know people who are on disability, you know, people who just cannot do the bootstrap thing, right? It's just not a thing that they can do. But our society does not value them as humans unless they can contribute to GDP. And that's, if you have that attitude and you consider yourself Christian, I got a problem with you anyway. But just even as a human, that's a pretty shitty attitude, in my opinion. Yeah. But I want to make sure to give you guys an opportunity. We're kind of wrapping up here. Make sure to let people know where they can find you on all the various socials and things. Where would they go to find LGBTQ Saves?
Right. So first off, you can find us at www.lgbtqsaves.org. It tells you everything about our org, from the programs we provide to ways to get involved and even how to donate. Because we are 100% community funded. We don't go based off grants. Really, the $5 you can put monthly in PayPal keeps us going, getting snacks, putting on free events for the kids and their families. But if you want to know some things in between, we do have a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for on our website. We are on Facebook and Instagram. We are starting up a Blue Sky to reach more people. And then we do have a YouTube where you can listen to youth, volunteers, staff who have been part of our journey and why LGBTQ Saves means the world to them. But you can also just drop us an email, contact us at lgbtqsaves.org. Sharon and I are always happy to chat and let people know what we're doing. That's fantastic. You guys are doing great work, and I appreciate everything that you do. And I know a lot of people personally who appreciate it as well. Look them up, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by Naive Media. Visit thematthewshow.com for info on this and other programs.